Give me a definition of food right now, out loud, wherever you are. I don't care where you are. Give me a definition of food. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bondi on Cheer. My name is Bondi, and here we have honest conversations about coaching, business leadership, and long-term athlete development in the sport of cheerleading. I'm really trying to keep my posture. I have to raise my microphone and feel like sometimes when it's not high enough that I just start like slouching towards it. And then I'm watching myself in the camera and I hate it. Have you guys ever done that? Like where they're like, watch yourself talk? Set something up and watch yourself talk. And then you're just going to be like, what am I doing, bro? Like my eye twitches and I like talk with my chin. I don't know. Everybody, it is finally time to dive into some of the nerdy stuff of nutrition. All right. By this point in time, like I said in one of the other nutrition episodes, I have absolutely bored people to death with the whole concept of nutrition being a habit, creating good habits around nutrition, and how that is the most important thing that you can do when it comes to trying to get a grasp on your nutrition. And I'm really glad that I took a lot of time to do that because habitual structured eating is truly the most important part of nutrition. Everything else after that is pretty much more or less preference, okay? With the exception of a few things depending on goal, but a lot of it is just preference. But now that we know what we should be focused on, there's no harm in having a little background information on one of the most important parts of being human being, eating food. What is food anyways, okay? We use this term a lot. We've been eating since birth. You're born, you need to consume food because it's a non-negotiable. But what is it? I want you to take a second and define food. Give me a definition of food right now, out loud, wherever you are. I don't care where you are. Give me a definition of food. It's pretty difficult. Okay, there's a lot of parameters that we need to add, all right? So most people probably came up with the definition of food is something that you eat, right? But what if I ask you, well, what if I eat a Lego block? Is that food? No, obviously the answer is no. Based on the definition of something that we eat, a Lego block could be food. So we need to add parameters. Let's add some constraints here as to what we define as food so that a Lego block doesn't count, or a shoe, right? How about food is something we eat that provides us energy? But I could ask, well, what if I just slam a monster or an Alani or a Ghost? Pick your poison. What if I just slam one of those? Is that food? No. And caffeine isn't necessarily energy in the way that we're trying to define it here. So it's obviously not food. But the energy isn't even the same energy that we're talking about. So we need to refine it again. Let's add some parameters, some constraints. Also, when we say eat, we're boxing ourselves in there because what if you're drinking a smoothie? Is that food by our definition? I feel like it should be. A smoothie should be food. So let's refine it again. How about food is something that we consume that provides us with calories from macronutrients? I think that'll do for now. Okay. But Bondi, what the hell is a macronutrient? A macro what? Macronutrient? A calorie? How are we defining these things, right? And this is why I think nutrition is one of the most tricky topics in the world. You have been eating food almost since the moment you were born, okay? You have been eating food for every day, multiple times a day for years, yet it's difficult to even define what that is. And when we do, there's words that pop up that you don't even know what the definition of those things are. And we interact with this thing every single day. We have to. It is essential to life. Okay, well, don't worry. Just because you couldn't define food the first time around and make it an all-encompassing term that doesn't allow us to put like computer or microphone in that definition, just because it's something that we put in our body, but rather something that we consume that provides us with calories in the form of macronutrients or from macronutrients, you are more familiar with these things than you think. So if you have a box of food or a bag of food or you have food that comes in a package, you flip that package over and you will get the nutrition label, the nutrition information. There you see calories, big C, and macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats, okay? So you are familiar with those things, but these are the kind of terms that start getting said necessarily because you can't avoid a definition of food without saying macronutrients and calories. But those things are like, well, what is it? Like if I say macronutrient, you're like, what is that? Well, protein is like, okay, well, I know what protein is. Well, protein is a macronutrient, right? So it's just, we don't have the right things linked to these words. So let's break these things down a little bit. Let's start with calories, okay? So calories are simply a measure of how much usable energy is in a food, okay? And I know usable energy, we're throwing all of these nuanced terms in front of words that you know, like energy, but now usable. Is there non-usable? I mean, technically, non-usable would be something like dietary fiber, like insoluble fiber. Like there's energy in there, but our body can't break it down, and therefore that's not usable energy. But calories don't reflect that. So calories are just showing us that energy can be taken and turned into what we call ATP, all right? The energy currency of the body, which is probably giving you flashbacks from like freshman year of high school science. So I apologize. But this stuff is important, okay? There's a reason you're taught it. You're just not ever really taught how to apply it or why it's relevant. So in your mind, these words and terms are literally just like, why am I sitting in this class in the first place? Okay, but I'm here to make sure that you know that these words and terms are actually useful and applicable to everyday life. Thinking requires energy. Breathing requires energy. Walking requires energy, okay? Scrolling on TikTok for 3 hours requires energy. There is no escaping the fact that we require energy. Your body burns energy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So where do we get all of that energy? Food, as we previously defined it, okay? More specifically in the form of macronutrients, which have calories. So calories are that energy that our body uses. Macronutrients are where the calories exist, okay? We have 3 macronutrients. We have proteins, carbs, and fats. We've probably all heard these terms and are familiar with these words because, again, they're on the back of every nutrition label that you've ever seen. Now, here's the interesting part. Not all macronutrients are created equal. We have fats at 9 kilocalories per gram. We have proteins at 4 kilocalories per gram and carbs also at 4 kilocalories per gram. So proteins and carbs provide the same amount of energy per gram consumed. Fats provide 9. Okay, so let's make sense of all of this. Calories, capital C, is total energy in a food, okay? Macronutrients, the proteins, carbs, and fats, are what make up those calories, okay? Depending on how many grams of each one of those we have respectively, that will tell us how many calories we have in this food or serving of that food, okay? Let's say that we have a food item that has 10 grams of fat, 20 grams of carbs, and 15 grams of protein, okay? This could be a standard protein bar, honestly, with 20 grams of protein. Let's do the math really quick. 10 grams of fat, okay? 9 calories per gram of fat. 9 times 10, 90 calories, okay? 90 of those calories are coming from fat. Let's take the carbohydrates, okay? 20 times 4, 80. We have 80 calories coming from our carbohydrates. Protein, 15 grams of protein, 15 times 4, we have 60 calories coming from our protein. All right, so let's add those all up. 90 plus 80, 170 plus 60, 230 calories. All right, so this food item, whatever this, is going to have roughly 230 kilocalories in it. So see how that works? See how that's applicable? It's pretty straightforward, right? We can figure out how many calories are in something roughly if we know how many grams of proteins, carbs, and fats we have in that food item, per serving. Now, technically speaking, we consume fats, carbohydrates, and proteins, which provide us with calories, and then our body converts them into ATP through a number of ridiculously complex chemical processes that we might get to, but that's way down the road. For now, we only need to understand one thing. We eat food to provide our bodies with energy. That energy keeps us alive. It allows us to do stuff. How much energy we need depends largely on how active we are. More activity, more energy requirements. Less activity, fewer energy requirements. That's it. That's all you need to understand. You don't have to complicate it, but having the understanding and a little bit of background is really important to you being able to conceptualize these things and not fall prey to the fear-mongering of like the this and the that, like we've talked about, the gluten and the saturated fat and the carbohydrates, all of it. You don't need to scare yourself to success. You need to have an understanding so that you can sift through the BS and actually focus on what matters. Like we talked about, the habits and the structured eating pattern. All right. And then understanding like how to figure out whether or not you're going above or below those energy requirements or demands of your body. And that's where the nutrition calculator that is out and available now with the book, comes in extremely handy because it helps take the guesswork out of it. But you still want to have a basic understanding of food, be able to define it. What is it comprised of? It gives us calories. Those calories come from macronutrients in different amounts. The macronutrients are this. I can figure out macronutrient math to determine how many calories a food or a serving of a food item has. Simple math here, everybody, okay? Simple concepts. It's just certain words. Turn our brains off. And I understand there might be some PTSD there, some trauma that's brought back up from early, grade level science classes that you just wanted to put yourself to sleep in. I get it. But we're here to undo that, okay? I promise. I'm here to make sure that you guys don't want to fall asleep and that you don't lose sight of the why you should understand these things, okay? This has been Bondi with another episode of Bondi on Cheer. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. There are not videos on Patreon, but, I don't know. Maybe we'll do that. All right. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Remember, life's hard. You got to be harder. I'll see you guys in the next episode.